We are live now.
Good evening, everyone. It's the second edition of Ikena. What are we doing? What's the name of this stream?
We don't have a name.
Okay, well, this is the second
By the
edition.
next episode, we should have one.
We'll figure out a name of a stream without a name, and the title is Lockdown. We'll be discussing lockdown and little papers. Between we have Field Rift. That's Ikena.
Yeah, hi.
And we have
Hi,
our
everyone.
first guest. He's a husband, a father, a politician, businessman, suit wearer, former troll, and also a former daddy's boy. Please welcome Ose and I, also known as Papa Donkey, also known as Ose and I on Twitter.
Glad to be here, guys. How do I share this link? If I want to share it on Twitter or whatever.
No, I'm coming. I'll send the link for the YouTube video.
The link will be in the chat.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, so I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah. So today we'll be talking about the lockdown, the COVID-19 situation. When do you think this would end? How do you think this will end? And how has your experience been? Ikena, you are in the middle of nowhere. Has being in isolation changed your lifestyle?
Well, being in a relatively small town has its perks. So I don't think there is no lockdown in Nsukka for all intents and purposes, because public transport is still available. You can still move around. The only thing I know is intercity travel. So if I was going to travel to Enugu, which is about 40-50 kilometers away from where I am, there are checkpoints and they will ask you questions and you should have good answers, or you should have a good amount of money with you to settle if you are traveling interstate. But within the town, even markets are open, because I know the livestock and food market was open certainly a day before Easter. So we aren't really locked down, but we're observing social distancing while we can.
Okay. Also, how did lockdown they do you? I mean, you are in a saner environment. Can we tell the audience where you are?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I'm in Nsukka right now.
You are not close to me, but well.
Let's assume
we can give you safe haven. We can give you safe haven.
I'm in Glasgow, and it's been interesting because I have family obviously in Nigeria, and my experience here is markedly different from you guys. So there isn't this. Obviously, you won't have police arresting and shooting people on the streets here. We are allowed to go out as long as we don't go out in large groups. We're allowed to exercise once a day. So I find that I'm actually getting fitter. I'm riding around with my family, jogging around with my family. You're allowed to go to the shops. My wife still works.
Okay.
So I think for me it feels like a really boring extended holiday. I think that's the largest. That's how I'll best describe it. Feels like a holiday, and it's problematic because my business is in Nigeria, and I still have to work, and I'm finding that that's actually the most difficult part of this lockdown. Actually, trying to sit down and get into the frame of mind I need to be in to work regular office hours. I don't know how people who work at home ever managed it. I find that I'm really, really struggling to be productive during this lockdown.
Okay.
Well,
In my case,
speaking about work and productivity, because most days, I still try to run a regular timetable. Like if there wasn't any lockdown, the only thing I don't have are students and lectures. So I basically go to the office, do a bit of work till 4, 5, and then I go home. And I noticed that a lot of my colleagues come around, even though the building is locked. Everybody has their own key, so people come in, work, and go home. So it's because I've tried working out from home, and it's not the same. It's not the same. There is that you are more relaxed at home.
I think both of you are cavemen. Are cavemen then?
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in Port Harcourt, we our situation is very strange. The state borders are closed, so there isn't any traffic in or out of the state. However, traffic within the state is pretty much normal. The major markets are closed. So the big markets, oil mill, slaughter, and the other markets are closed. But the shops are open. Most shops are open. A number of shops are closed, but the banks are also closed. But I went to buy a new modem for the house,
For the stream.
and I bought fuel. So yes, for working at home, for the first few days, I was trying to live my life like I would work in the office. I would wear, I would I would wear my clothes like I would go to work normally and dress up, wear my shoes, and I try and get into the frame of work. It was useful until my wife explained to me the logistics involved in dry cleaning. So I had to stop. And my productivity has seems to have gone. I won't say I'm less productive, but I'm not doing a number of busy work these days.
Okay.
So that's it for me. Um, so what else is going on in the land of this thing? Also your wife works in a hospital. How's the working experience been for her?
What's that?
Mr. Nenny, your wife still has to work. How has the work experience been for her?
I think he's gone again.
Yeah, I
I think
think
his
it's gonna
kids.
be.
I think his kids started watching YouTube.
Yeah, his kids are watching YouTube.
His kids started watching YouTube. He's out of the stream.
Yeah,
He's out of the stream. So what was the idea? Wike's idea in easing the lockdown for Easter. What was the idea?
we don't know. And I could speculate, but I feel I feel I don't know. I don't know. Um,
He wanted to make people happy.
if you wanted to be cynical, you could say something like a number of the churches were complaining about low attendances and
Mm,
low rooms, and maybe got to the ears of the of Wike. Wike is partial to church. I mean, for all his flaws, he seems to be a church going, church loving Nigerian politician. So I
okay.
feel he felt that the risk in having large church services, as long as the state is still sealed, is allowable. You understand? I mean, he's really taking the sealing of this state personal. mean, you can still get out. I mean, but you would really need to. There are ways you can get out of the state. I don't know how you can get into Rivers State right now. Um,
Oh,
so
so the state the locking the closure, the border closure, the state border closure is actually quite serious
yes, it is quite serious.
because
Um, I think supply trucks of food and medicine and supplies are still coming into the state because we haven't run out of food yet. However, I think there are a lot of checks, temperature checks and all
okay,
before you can get into River State.
okay.
So that's the thinking behind Wike's behavior. Ose, are you back?
I'm back. I was actually going to ask about Wiki. Is he spoiling for a fight with the federal government? I don't understand his posturing. I don't quite get it. What's he aiming at?
I should be asking you. You're the politician. I don't know how Wike thinks.
Because I don't,
I
I
am.
don't, I didn't understand why. Because when I saw that, I was like, why are you doing this now? To what end?
I don't know. So Wike has come out to say that this will probably be his last political appointment, and he wasn't going to be a godfather.
Okay,
He says it, and the logic he gave is perfectly flawless. He says, look, everyone who has been a godfather has been beaten by the godson. And he would rather not be beaten by any godson, so he wasn't going to anoint a successor, which effectively means he was going to, after his governorship, he probably would not run for any more elective posts. Maybe he will go to the Senate. But
that laugh,
that laugh,
that laugh.
uh, that laugh. So I
What
do
is
not.
also what is behind this laugh?
So I am not familiar with Wike's thinking. I do not know what what Wike is up to. But his behavior has been peculiar, to say the least.
It's an open secret, I think, that Wike wants in some way to get to Aso Rock in 2023. I've actually been in some rooms where this was discussed. So that's what I don't get. I don't understand the antagonism towards the federal government. Does he see COVID-19 as an opportunity to sort of bolster his leadership credentials? Does he see himself filling the gap that the president appears to have created? I watch his interviews, his press conferences, and that's the only thing that sort of seems to make sense, because he is coming across as a leader who will protect his people, regardless of whose axe is God. So maybe that's the thinking behind the madness he appears to be exhibiting. And to be clear, what he's doing is illegal. He doesn't have the powers to shut down ports. He also doesn't, which is really curious, also doesn't control the security forces. So I don't quite understand how he's able to arrest people using federal government police personnel. I'm not quite clear on what's happening there.
Well, I think, Wike has managed to cultivate a great relationship with the commissioner of police. That said, it's not like Lagos, where the House of Assembly actually sat and created laws and regulations and all. River State, it was basically Wike's fiat. I mean,
because I was going to.
I
Sorry,
saw the regulation on WhatsApp. I saw the regulations via text messages on WhatsApp. So we in River State don't know the rules, or we don't know what's going on. But we try to comply as much as possible. I mean, I've been my where I work has been in compliance for longer than even Wike's regulations. Well, this is this is week 4 of lockdown for me. That said, Wike knows that he doesn't have the rights to do these things. However, who is going to stop him? That's the question. No one right now is going to try and stop Wike.
It was interesting because between the president's first COVID broadcast and the second one, again, there had been a lot of posturing and saber rattling by Wike. And I thought, and not just Wike, some other governors were taking liberties with border closures, with boundary closures. And I was very, very surprised to actually hear the president in his second broadcast talk about cooperation and harmony and a smooth working relationship with all the governors. I thought he would have used that speech to sort of almost like what I mean. I don't want to reference Trump, but almost like
Please
what
reference
Trump
Trump.
was.
Please refer.
Almost like what Trump is doing in America, where he says, you know what, you need to understand that there's a delineation between the state and its powers and the federal and its powers and responsibilities. And I was surprised that it almost appeared like the president was backing down from confronting these governors.
Well, we must remember that the president is a second-term president. So his behavior and his willingness to fight might be affected or might be tempered by the fact that he is a second-term president, and he's retiring after this. We hope.
What I wanted to know is, I guess there is some means for the states to do what Wike is doing, some legal method. Now, there's something about the Quarantine Act, and I'm not too conversant with it. So, what should Wike have done? Or is it something that is just the federal government that can just tell the state, say, okay, this state should be locked down?
Okay, so what it is, the Quarantine Act is it's a very interesting piece of legislation because it recognizes a situation where a governor needs to act when the president has failed to act.
Okay.
So when the governors first of all rolled out their regulations and invoked the Quarantine Act, that's fine because the president hadn't spoken. But then the president then came up with, he then invoked the Quarantine Act. I think the issue, and it was very specific to Lagos, Ogun,
and Abuja.
So, these regulations that the president rolled out are only limited to Lagos, Ogun, and Abuja. They don't apply to the other states. So the other states right now, if they are operating under the Quarantine Act and their own public health acts, they are well within their rights to do so. The problem I find is that because of the crazy nature of Nigeria, you have the borders are not state borders in the sense that the borders cannot be shut by the governors. So you cannot stop me from coming into Rivers State. It's one of our constitutionally guaranteed rights. And you also have federal government, because Wike makes an interesting argument. He says you can fly into rivers. He admits and recognizes that he doesn't control the airports. Okay. But once you leave the airport, you're stepping into Rivers State and he controls the state. And he won't allow you come into the state. but there are federal roads running transversing the states.
Yeah.
And if the federal government wanted to, enforce it's guaranteed right of access throughout the states. It's an interesting dynamic, and again, I think maybe the federal government just doesn't want to get into
they do not wish to get into a
36
fight.
conflicts.
Yeah.
36 conflicts with 36 different governors. Maybe that's what the government doesn't want to get drawn into. But I don't know if it's a workable strategy, because the governors now are acting, with all due respect, quite stupidly. I saw just before we came live, one of the
Niger,
governors, I think it was Niger,
Niger State.
has lifted a ban on Friday prayers, for instance. When across the world we've seen that one of the easiest ways to spread the virus is congregational prayers.
Yeah.
So you see the federal government trying to shut down the spread in Abuja, but right next door in Niger, the governor is implementing policies that are guaranteed, to amplify the spread.
Wow. So there were prayers in Niger today.
Yes.
Glory be to God. Okay, so
I think it was yesterday that he came out with the directive for Jumat prayers today. Yeah, Niger State. Let me see if I can even find the tweet and share it. But yeah, it was Niger State. So they had Jumat prayers today. And I don't know if does Niger have any COVID confirmed case? I'm not sure they do.
well, Rivers has 2 cases, or Rivers had 2 cases, and both patients have recovered. So
Same thing
we
with
have,
him. Our
we have
second
to,
our second case recovered today. So Enugu is COVID-19 free.
yes. Niger's and Rivers is also COVID-19 free, as far as we know.
But
I mean,
Kano,
do you blame Niger? We saw Abuja, I think, get 5 billion naira, and Lagos get 10 billion naira. So maybe it's profitable to get. Yeah, maybe it's profitable.
And so, okay, and that was also one of the reasons Wike was. I mean, so I watched some snippets of Wike's, I would, in the most liberal terms, call it a press conference, but Wike's event of this afternoon. And one of the things he talked about was the fact that Lagos and Abuja were getting all the money, and Rivers State was getting none. So companies should donate money to Rivers State. Oh, yeah. So,
and not to the federal government.
and not the federal government. Again, it's saber rattling.
Yeah, Niger has. Sorry, guys. Niger has 2 cases.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they're in good shape.
They are close to Abuja and Kaduna State, so I won't be surprised.
How many cases does Kaduna have?
6.
Aside the governor.
Did the governor have?
Yes.
He did?
He did.
Wow.
Yes,
he did.
Wow.
Yeah, and they and good for them, they announced it.
Has he recovered?
They haven't announced his recovery yet. So
yeah, Oyo has recovered. I got to know because I saw a congratulatory message to Oyo State. To the Oyo State. I think it was very nice. I think it was a nice gesture. And I'm asking anyone on the stream who can do memes. I would like to congratulate Ose, you'd help me do this. I would like to congratulate Boris for his own recovery. So if you could help us prepare a meme so that we can also congratulate Boris on his recovery, and we pray that his leadership be long, and all his detractors that were praying for his untimely demise at the hands of the NHS can know that the hand of God is upon Boris. Yeah.
I think even more impressive than his recovery, and even more for me as a political student of politics, even more impressive than the NHS was the transparency of the process and the steps taken to immediately make sure that government wasn't leaderless.
Leaderless, yes.
So as soon as he fell sick, the deputy was appointed and given full powers. Um, it was really
Smooth.
impressive, and the message they sent out and the message they kept echoing was, even though the prime minister is sick, Britain is not without a leader, and the leadership is in place, intact, and will continue to work for UK citizens. It was really impressive to watch that. There wasn't any bickering, there wasn't any politicking, no skullduggery. It was
There
a
was no
simple
doctrine of
process.
necessity.
There wasn't anything like that. It was a simple process that just kicked in. It was
Immediately
really
happened.
impressive.
Okay, so which goes to my next issue. Is there cultural reason? Do you think there are any reasons why Nigerian leaders are not do not
Trans-
like to reveal things about their health? So you never hear that the governor falls sick. When the governor falls sick or the president falls sick, you never hear what they have. Yeah, they just he jets off abroad, and then the rumor mill takes over. Is there a cultural thing? Yeah, who wants
It,
to?
I think it is a cultural thing. I was telling someone that when you had the rumors that our president probably was down with COVID-19 before he gave the first speech,
Mhm.
before before the first before that first video where he came out and waved. There was that first clip,
23 seconds,
23-second clip. No, after the 23-second clip, there was this very short
20
1 minute clip, the kind of thing you see on TikTok, where he came and waved. He was walking
Yeah,
after a meeting with the health minister, and then
TikTok
he waved,
president.
yeah, and he waved and went back in before he was now forced to address the country. And I remember I was telling someone, I think it was you, Tosin, that when you have a king, when it comes out that the king is sick, there's a problem, it's a crisis. So it's better to hide it. It's better to hide it because it's a crisis when the king is sick, because it means that the king is weak. And then if the king is weak, then it means that the state is weak. But in a democratic country, or in what a democratic country is supposed to be, when the leader is sick, people have to know, because when people don't know, then there's a problem, because um, we can say the country is weaker when nobody is sure of the whereabouts of. I mean, imagine if this whole thing with Boris Johnson was kept under wraps, and it seemed like he was around, but he wasn't around. It would have been utter chaos, because nobody knows. Okay, who is in charge? Is Boris? Where's Boris? We don't know, and
He's
there
hale
would
and
have
hearty.
been utter chaos. Yeah.
I I I I, I agree completely what you've said, but I look at it at a slightly different angle, and the away from Buhari, even just to show you the reason why this happens is, look at Abakari, for instance. Abakari is no longer the most powerful man in Nigeria. There was a time I think he was arguably more powerful than the president, and just because of an illness and a separation, a physical separation from the seat of power. You've seen all sorts of people rush to fill that space. So Boss Mustafa is a lot more prominent. The Minister of Humanitarian Resources is also a lot more vocal. And what usually will happen is that you find it very, very difficult to regain your space in the court. I don't want to use the court because I think that gives a little bit too much of a veneer of gentility. I'll use the jungle. So if you lose status in the pecking order of the pack, it's very, very difficult to regain it. And that's one another reason why they hide their illnesses, because the pack doesn't care about you. The pack just cares about power and climbing that hierarchy. And if they sniff weakness in you, if they smell blood, they will descend on you. So I think that's why they hide it. It's not because they care. Yeah.
So basically, the Nigerian Aso Rock is like Manchester United under Alex Ferguson. Everybody's struggling to be in the first team.
Basically. In all of this, where is the vice president?
Reserves.
Outside the stadium.
Training with the youth team. Also, you were going to say?
Yes, I was going to say a lot of people who listen to this are not agree, but I think the vice president is probably the saving grace of this administration. I think he's one of the smartest, and I think he understands more than the others the need to run a country that's built on laws and the respect of rights. I think he has suffered from, real or imagined, the perception that he wants to become president in 2023. And I gave I used the analogy just now of the jungle. And usually what happens in the jungle is the head of the pack, who is already the head of the pack, doesn't allow, because in a court, the king grooms his princes. Mm-hmm. But in the jungle, the leader of the pack drives out any pretenders, any as people, anybody who anything that aspires to take place. So a lion will come in and kill off all the children of its rivals, and they'll drive off anybody else that they cannot kill. That's what has happened to Osinbajo. They have seen him pose a real threat to their ambitions in 2023. And like pack animals, they, regardless of what he brings, of the value he brings to the group, his ambition is more threats to them than whatever value he may hold. So how he gets back, I don't see how, unless the hand of God somehow intervenes, I don't think he will ever be relevant in this administration.
That would be shameful.
I have no opinions on Osinbajo. He will be fine. Let it be clear that I disavow whatever Ose has said. His opinions are his opinions and his opinions alone.
Don't need to be afraid, Tosin. Don't need to be afraid. Do not fear.
Fear not. Okay. So, away from the politics of the jungle to the jungle of politics. So this topic, I'm not as conversant as both of you are. Both of you have been in the thick of things. So you need to Someone should please put me through this Bello matter. Who Bello? Where is he from? Where he emerged from? Who Bello? Who him?
What did he?
Where is he from? What did he do?
Also, please handle this one. Handle it. It's
Who him?
So I to sort of understand the hoopla around Bello and what he said, you have to sort of get a background, a quick background study of who the El-Rufais are. Now, El-Rufai was a major player in PDP under Obasanjo. So he has almost always been in government in this government that started, this democracy that started in 1999. He has always sort of been in and around the corridors of power. He fell out with Yaradua. I think he wanted to be president. It was himself, Ribadu, and some other young Turks who felt they should have been anointed by Obasanjo, who instead went left and picked Yaradua. So actually under Yaradua, El-Rufai went on exile and sort of became a very vocal critic of Yaradua and by extension the PDP, and never really got back under the umbrella. Now, El-Rufai is a very, very brilliant man. I hesitate to use the word cunning because I don't want to be sued, so I'll stick with brilliant.
I don't think cunning
And
is. I don't think you can be sued for calling someone cunning. So I'm going to say it. El Rufai is cunning, and I have the
and
Obasanjo book as reference.
brilliant, brilliant, and cunning.
Yes.
and he, in the lead up to the 2011 elections, in the lead up to the pivotal 2015 elections, he was very vocal, was very vicious, pushed a lot of. He showed a side that most people hadn't seen in him. It was a soulless. I'll call it a soulless, vicious type of politicking. The end was all that mattered, regardless of the cost of getting to that end. And he played a very, very, I want to say, I know we've always had the Christian, Muslim, North-South divide in politics, but it really sort of exploded in the lead up to the 2015 elections with the words that people were saying, with the attacks on a Christian Southern president by Northern Muslim politicians. And it was so bitter. Even if you were not a politician around that 2015, you saw the toxicity on social media. It permeated every part of society. And I had hoped, after the election, I had really, really hoped that the president would sort of like, you know what, I've won the election. Let me try and lead one nation. Let me try and, rebuild this country. I knew that wasn't going to happen when we heard his 97% and 5% comment. But El-Rufai continued to stoke those embers of division. And again, as a political analyst, you always want to try and look at, why would he do that? I think why El-Rufai tried to position himself as, and this is just my opinion, I'm not in any way calling him that. I think why he tried to position himself as a bigoted fundamentalist is that he was trying to mirror Buhari, who, bar any politician in recent memory, commands the most fanatical and the largest
Support.
political support base,
Yeah, that they had that
right?
famous. He always comes with at least 10 million.
Exactly, and like you said, Buhari retires in 2023. Who takes over his mantle? So I think, for better or worse, El-Rufai has been trying to position himself as that person. Maybe in the PDP side we have Kwankwaso, but we don't really have that firebrand fundamentalist type of northern Muslim politician in the APC apart from Buhari, and I think El-Rufai wanted that. So that sort of gives a background to who the El-Rufais are.
Sorry,
So we've
if I can come in, he wanted that as well as also wanting to be the intellectual northerner in the mold of the Sanusi mold. I think
this Anasimo, yes, that's true.
he also wanted to be both at the same time.
So he's serving
That's
God
true.
and serving Mammon. But also, please continue.
And I don't know if I'm able to, and Ikena made a very, very good point. In his quest for intellectualism, he courted a lot of foreign donor agencies. He's courting a lot. So you see them working with him as governor in Kaduna, regardless of what he does, as Mr. Hyde, they work with Dr. Jekyll and they sort of want to be blind to his alter ego and what that alter ego is saying and doing. So I don't know how those donor agencies sort of square that conundrum. It doesn't make sense to me because it's visible to everybody to see. We saw what he did with the Shiites. We saw the comments he made about body bags. He has always been this sort of problematic politician. So I was saying, so that's the background to the El-Rufai name. And on social media, his kids have sort of, maybe buoyed by the fame or infamy of their father, have sort of keyed into that mentality, and they use this very, very similar language. It's very toxic, it's very caustic, it's very divisive. But so this takes us now to Bello, who, as anybody will know on Twitter, you get on Twitter and you make a comment, and everybody, half of your followers will support you, half of your followers will criticize you. But Bello then explodes. Maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know what he was going through. So someone calls him a daddy's boy, and then he threatens to rape the guy's mom or to gang rape the guy's mom. To be fair to Bello, I've seen a lot of worse comments on Twitter.
To be honest, to be fair on Bello, to not be fair on Bello, if he had kept it on the timeline, I would have said in my mind, and not on Twitter, I would have said, it's been edgy. He's pushing the envelope and he's being a very aggressive troll. Where the line was crossed was when the guy entered the Brussels DM.
Apparently, it seems like it is something he does quite a lot. So apparently, look, because I think that Sunday morning, he was the fellow in question. I can't remember his name. He wasn't the only one who had DMs from Bello. Apparently, when Bello, I think what Bello does, or what people say he does, is that when he argues with you, he comes to your DM, says something nasty, and then blocks you. So I think that is what he did to this guy.
But I'm interested in Kenya. Why do you think? Because, like I said, I've seen a lot of ugly stuff on Twitter. why do you think this blew up the way it did? Because it blew up.
Well, it blew up. I think one of the key things was the fact that was the ethnic angle, because it wasn't Bello's annoyance with the guy was because he thought the guy was Igbo, and it's as clear as that. So he thought the guy's criticism of Buhari and his father was coming from the point of view that this guy doesn't like Northerners. Anything a Northerner does, a Northern president does, is rubbish. So that was why, in his comments, he was talking about you're a Billy. You're a Billy. Go and look at the bridge that the Buhari that you said is incompetent is building, that you're a Billy did not finish.
Yeah.
Those were his first comments before he now went down to went stooped to the guy, to abusing the guy's mother. And then even in the DM, he now mentions the whole Igbo sound, because he was basically saying it was basically an annoyance of you, these Igbo people that do not appreciate the things that we do for you, and you always keep hating on the North, which is what the I am the North hashtag is basically about today.
I think we'll get back to the I am the North hashtag. But does Bello know that Goodluck Jonathan isn't Igbo at all?
Does he
And
know the boy?
Adebele is an Ijon name. Hello?
I missed the question. What did you say?
I said, does Bello know that Goodluck Jonathan isn't an Igbo man at all?
Unfortunately, in the eyes of many people in the North, Goodluck Jonathan was an Igbo guy.
Oh well, the man was not an Igbo man. No. Anyways, so also you were saying? Oh, he's muted. So
What happened?
he's muted. His children have come to talk to their father. Yes, also you were saying?
I've driven them away. We're back.
Okay.
Okay. So also, so I follow you on Twitter, and you're like the only person I follow these days. Please explain to me what he said something about kerosene. Can you please explain what kerosene had to do with anything?
I think we might have to call Yomi for this one.
like most things, it's multi-layered. So the kerosene abuse came from the fact that some of the southeastern governors, as part of COVID, allegedly as part of COVID-19 palliatives, were praying and distributing kerosene. The other thing, it was very graphic, because he says, I'll dip my member in kerosene and enjoy your mom. And apparently paraffin sort of like it's supposed to be like a penile enlarger. So it's something that people do. They marinate their members to help it grow. It's weird. It opened up this whole, took me down this rabbit hole. I'm still struggling, trying to get out of.
I was actually quite surprised when people started publishing the research that they had done on this paraffin thing, and I was like, oh, so this is a thing.
Yeah. So Yomi brings up the NHIB report, and I'm like, what? I know human beings are really curious and all, but what makes you decide that, you know what, I'm gonna dip my dick in kerosene and see what happens? Okay, so still keep me true. After Bello puts up the tweet, what happens next?
I want to say, shout out to Ikena, shout out to the other writers who, because what happened after Bello put up his tweet, there was some outrage. Um, but I think what really poured fuel on the fire was when his mom, the
Yeah.
first lady of Kaduna State, came on the timeline to say, I have no problem with this guy said, all
All
is
is
fair in love and war. And I
Mother of
think
the
that
year.
took it from a conversation between two Twitter users, a very toxic conversation, to something that was almost being endorsed by the state. Because let's not forget, we do have a Cyber Crimes Prohibition Act that
okay.
explicitly criminalizes in two sections what Bello did. First of all, the threat, and then secondly, a threat driven or motivated by an ethnic identity. So what? Let's be clear. What Bello did was criminal, and the first lady of the state comes out to say, "I have no problem with this. All is fair in love and war," and it was so wrong on so many levels, because not only is all not fair in love and war, raping women during war is an actual war crime.
Crime. Yeah.
But she represented so many different organizations. I think she was the chairman of ironically, the Kaduna State Sexual Assault Center. She is the first lady. She's a writer. She's a feminist. She hosts this Kaba Fest, this literary festival. She was positioning to be sort of like the face of Northern literature, and
I
to have such a
actually peeped her TED
yeah.
talk.
Oh, she has a TED talk.
So she has a TED talk. I peeped her TED talk, and at the beginning she was
Please, what
her TED talk is
what did she talk about?
her TED talk is on her bio, and she starts the TED talk talking about how she has different backgrounds. How I think her one grandparent is Hausa, the other grandparent is Fulani, the other one is Kanuri, the other one is Yoruba. That she's many things. It's typical thing. Like, I am not Fulani. I am many things. That kind of thing. I just watched the beginning and I stopped. I didn't go too far into the TikTok.
So I think that made it really problematic. That sort of elevated it from a Twitter conversation to a national conversation. I think to an even international conversation. And I don't think for her in particular, we've seen the end of this. I think there might be more repercussions for her to pay in future. It's not just the type of statement you endorse if you are a public
Figure.
Maybe unless you're but I don't think anybody else can endorse that sort of statement and get away with it.
On Twitter.
Yeah, but she did walk back on it, to be fair, and she walked back within an hour or two. So, does she get any good
No,
points for that?
No, didn't walk back. No, it was the next day.
It was the next case she walked back.
There was a walking back. Okay, so
the tweets are still up. I think the tweets are still up though. She did not delete them. At least Bello deleted his tweet.
Okay. So please explain to me the brittle paper situation. Please, first thing, what is brittle paper? And how did they get involved in this?
I can't speak on Brittle Paper. I had never heard of them till this incident.
Ikena, do you know what a brittle paper is?
I had heard of Brittle Paper before, but it was something I just heard of. So when I heard the name, it sounded familiar. So in my mind, it was a website similar to, there was one called Naked Convos at some point in time. I'd heard of it, but it wasn't something I visited. It wasn't a place I visited. It wasn't anything I really knew until this. It was actually when this happened, and I was like, let me even check this website and see what their content is, because a lot of it was, is this the type of content they normally put out? So I went to look at their
Okay.
content, and most of their content is promoting new books, new writers, interviewing writers, and then the occasional topical article.
Okay. So they don't do news.
No, but what I did check that as well, Ikena, and I know at least there were two previous. I won't call them articles. I'll call them editorial pieces, opinion pieces. They wrote on the sexual conduct and
Okay.
opinions of writers. So there was one writer, I think, that was involved with child sex or underage sex, and there was another writer who wrote a piece about pedophilia. So it was written from the perspective of a pedophile. And Brittle Paper, especially on the pedophile article, came out. And just to be clear, this is a work of fiction, but I'm unhappy about this whole sequence of events. Is that so? An editor in Brittle Paper publishes this story, gets into an argument with the owner of the paper, who doesn't want the story published for whatever reason. I don't want to speculate, and
Please do.
loses his job.
Also,
Like I
you
said, I
feel
don't
free
know
to
anything.
speculate on this stream. We have no editorial standards whatsoever.
Because basically, I think basically she told him that there are certain things in the article that were the tone. Basically, she was like, I think the angle she was coming from was like, she didn't want anybody to sue them. So he had to be careful with the terms that he was using and the accusations he was making. At least that was her claim. So she said there was some paragraph where he references a quite silly article. There was an article that came out the very day this thing came up about the virtues of Hadizel El-Rufai. There was an article in This Day. So I think another article in the Guardian also that was also so he referenced those articles, and he basically dragged the newspapers for publishing that kind of article at that time, knowing what was happening. So she was like, he should remove that paragraph, and also he should change the title of the article.
Okay. Did he do that?
Well, apparently he changed the article.
So Clarence is here.
Welcome, Clarence. You are 1 hour late, but carry on.
Let me unmute his mic.
No, but carry on. Also, you were saying.
Carry on.
Okay, so apparently he changed the article but didn't change the title. And that sort of snowballed into her withdrawing all his editorial login access and privileges, him resigning, and then she does this.
He puts out a statement.
10,000 page, 10,000 word article on why she did what she did and how she disappointed she is. And I think she wanted, for her, the main thing was that instead of saying gang rape, he should have qualified it as just lewd comments. But interestingly, the article still isn't up, with whatever title she wanted to put up. And it was interesting to see the wave of support she got from her allies and the attempt to reframe this. It was very interesting to see them try to reframe the issue into a gender one. It was a
Yeah.
man who was
Yeah.
trying to destroy what woman had built. It was
To
no longer
hijack.
about,
It was a man trying to
yeah,
hijack
it
and
was
destroy what the woman had built.
Wow.
yeah. It was really interesting. It
And,
was no
and
longer about the threat to that rape someone's mom. It was no longer about the endorsement of that threat. It was now a gender thing, and I was he must be a misogynist, even
yeah,
though he has been an ally for 4 years. Once he fell out with this woman, it was all the proof they needed that um, once again the patriarchy had reared its ugly head.
because
Well,
it
who
was
here
quite
hasn't
it
been
was quite
called? Who
interesting
hasn't been called it?
because it was
No,
quite interesting. Because it was quite interesting how that narrative happened. Because there was a thread by some British lady. There was a thread by some British lady in support of this the owner of Brittle Paper, and I think she was the one, I think, that first mentions pu- pulls the misogyny attack, because that thread ended with believe women. Believe women. And this is another occasion where you have to listen to the woman's story before you draw conclusions and all of that. But apparently, it seems like there was some sort of meeting about what line are we going to push. There was no, there clearly was a meeting in some group before they now came out and said this is the line. Because in the end, and I started noticing a lot of people who were actually very, very quiet. They were very, very quiet on Sunday. They were quiet when all of this was happening. And all of a sudden, they all started finding their voice. I saw Molara Wood, and it was that they had a meeting. And basically, I think the idea was this guy. I think one thing that clearly has happened is that there has been a lot of bad blood between the fellow and his boss.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and for him, on his part, maybe he feels that they have been stifling him too much, and this was the last straw. For them, they were like, this guy has been causing a lot of wahala, and this is the opportunity for us to kick him out. But the problem now is this occasion was the wrong occasion, because if I was the editor of Brittle
yeah,
Paper, I would have read the room and realized that no, this is not the kind of situation where I deal with this guy at this point. You can deal with him, maybe I can decide to deal with him 6 months down the line, but not now, because anything I do now the optics would be that I am running interference for El-Rufai, and that is how it looks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so the gist is whether you
But
are an
but it
ally or you're not an
sorry,
ally.
sorry,
What?
Tosin, but again, I just want to say I'm really, really proud of Nigerian writers, the segment of the Nigerian literary community who came out
Yeah,
loudly and refused to let anyone distract and refused to allow anyone reframe or reshape
the
or
conversation.
retell the story. I was really, really proud of them. Whatever the beef fueling this might have been, it was beautiful to see people refuse to be intimidated or distracted by, and like Ikena said, white noise and distractions.
Because another good thing that I really liked seeing was people constantly saying, "Remember that this is not the issue. The issue is this tweet and this threat, and all is fair. Remember that this is the issue. Let us not, because there were so many things. I mean, on Sunday, the conversation somehow devolved into Aboki is now a slaw. But they're like, okay, when did Aboki become? Okay, we accept that Aboki is a slaw. Okay, we'll stop using it. Okay, back to the matter.
That Aboki thing was hilarious. It was so obvious. You know what I mean? It was so obvious. And I was having a discussion with my brother, and I said, because he was trying to find out, he was trying to understand the link. I said it's a very simple one. Bello's statements were clearly bigoted. And so how do you handle it? You go back to you take a book out of you take a leaf out of the holy book. What did Jesus do when those people wanted to stone that woman, the adulteress? He simply, whoever is without sin should cast,
what about
the
you?
first stone. So that was what that conversation was about. It was an attempt to remind us all that, overtly or covertly, we are all bigots. That was what that conversation was about. Yeah. So how can we really condemn a fellow bigot? It was so hilarious to watch.
Moral high ground in this matter.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then there was also the El-Rufai, the El-Nathan angle. There was also the El-Nathan, because remember that El-Nathan is persona non grata for a lot of people.
What?
Remember that El-Nathan is...
Remember what?
El-Nathan is persona non grata for these people. And El-Nathan has been on them, especially after the Kada Fest of last year.
Yeah.
So for El-Nathan, their behavior was just basically confirming what he was saying last year.
Yeah.
So that was why he was consistently dragging them, as in El-Nathan was dragging, and he did not allow any of them to rest. He was consistently dragging, as in El-Nathan decided to dedicate time and data. And this lockdown is the lockdown where I'm going to drag these people finally. And it was fun.
You made a good point. I think you make a good point about the lockdown. I wonder if we would have given it so much airtime if we were living our daily lives, we were out at work, dealing with the hustle and bustle of living in Nigeria. But because everyone is stuck at home and everyone is bored, you see every tweet that comes across your timeline.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like how they say the Queen of the Coast is usually active on weekends and when there's no football and when there's nothing to distract and everybody's just basically... That's basically what's happening.
Exactly. It was hilarious. I think Tosin is having issues joining us.
Yeah, he's stepping out and stepping back in. And then Clarence hasn't managed to unmute his mic.
No. I always mute. So
okay. Oh, he's here.
I'm joining the conversation 1 hour late.
Welcome.
I just have to listen to 5 minutes of the conversation.
Welcome.
Yes. So apparently,
so I have to listen to 5 minutes of the conversation before I can even.
Go on, Clarence.
Clarence, just introduce yourself. Just introduce yourself. Let the audience know who you are.
The audience that we have.
Yes, we have an audience of like 2 people.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Clarence.
Clarence.
Okay.
My bag,
Let
my.
me. I'll just. You guys might leave me. I want to go and try and share the link.
Okay.
Um,
I have
I'm
shared.
using my phone to have this conversation, so it might sign me out.
I know how.
Yeah,
Hmm.
be. None. But really, that's my introduction.
We didn't hear your introduction. Please, can you take it again?
Ah, network went off. I know I saw the notification. All right, so Clarence, background is computer science, um, info, technology and management consulting, no party affiliations, either at home or abroad. None for the none. I don't see myself affiliating in the near future. Maybe the next 1 or 2 years. So yeah, I don't
Okay,
Hello.
so Clarence, I have a question.
know what
The back
else. What other variables are important in introductions?
I think you've done enough.
You've done enough, but Clarence, I just spy that the background noise I'm hearing. Are you sure you are locking down, or are you in a speakeasy bar?
Yeah, yeah. So this between the music and this Ox fan that is beside me, people have been accusing me of being outside. So there's this particularly huge fan beside me because Lagos
Okay.
is too hot for. So there's two fans and one AC just to keep cool.
Two fans and one AC.
That bad?
Honestly, it was sometime in this lockdown we just said that no, we can't die. So before the main, that was during the Lagos lockdown, but before the main lockdown, we went out for groceries and just got a fan by force because it was getting too
Nah,
much. So there's no. So I mean, lockdown experience for me has been a bit funny because work from home. So I noticed when I came to this apartment that we have power only at night, like only at night. So when you go to
okay.
work and come back, it's not a big issue. But when you have to work from home, you have to run generator. So that's when I learned. So whatever savings I have from commute, so I've been locked down for 3 weeks now. So
Okay.
my employer took a step like 20 something of last month. Everybody stay home, paid early, go and shop. He paid us early, go and shop, stay home. So I and my wife we went shopping, came back. Um, the next week, just like everybody stay home. So from then till now, and that was the week that I think Lagos on Tuesday Lagos came out with their lockdown. Next week, Hawaii came with his own lockdown. So the thing is, working from home has been so whatever savings I've had in not commuting, I've projected that I'm going to spend it on fueling generator, to be in meetings, to be in whatever, to even be alive throughout the whole thing because there's no point dying of Lagos
Oh,
Heat
shit.
also decided
Yeah.
to Lagos Heat
Yeah.
decided that this is the time it wants to come out. So you might find yourself dying of heat before you die of hunger,
I mean, it
like
can't
Or
be
people are
that.
afraid
COVID?
of doing.
It can't be that
Or
it's
COVID?
COVID. If COVID didn't get you, it was Lagos heat.
I mean, this is just crazy. It's so, and then, well, let's. So people buy fuel or something. Uh, so I did a sneak. I mean, through all the back roads. I didn't know that one of the back roads I don't normally use ends up in a market. So I end up in this market, and there's a huge crowd in the market. Then it makes sense to me because I didn't believe Lagosians would have survived 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown like that. They are surviving 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown because they are not observing the lockdown
Yeah.
fully.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only grace we've had that people have not gone crazy, have not gone hungry. They
Yeah,
are not fully observing the lockdown.
Yeah.
Maybe this week they might observe, but before now they're not fully observing it, and that's really helped people survive. Really helped
yeah,
them.
yeah. So about using the generator, I did not know. So in my house, I have an inverter as a backup, and then we have a generator. Um, I did not know my inverter batteries were bad until this lockdown started. simply because when I get home, there's usually light, and yeah, and we don't use too much equipment. We don't use. We just when it's time for to us to go to bed, it's only the fan that is on and the air conditioning, which is not hooked up to the inverter. The battery has been bad, and I think it has been bad for quite some time. And it's the lockdown that has let me know because, yeah.
Well,
So
Nsuka isn't
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Nsuka,
So it's
yeah, it failed.
okay. Nsuka weather
can hear you. Can hear you.
isn't really too bad. So when they say it is hot here, it's not really too hot. And when they say it is cold, it's really cold here. So I'm not complaining too much. As for power, well, NEPA hasn't really been the best, but I have an inverter and solar power, so I can't complain.
Yeah, you really shouldn't complain. You are part of the 1% in this country. I don't know. I don't know what people see in you, and they say that you are poverty stricken. You are not poverty stricken. Uh, right. So Clarence, we've been talking
Forest man
about
on social media.
the forest man on social media.
Yeah.
Clarence, we were talking about the Bello issue. Um, have you been following the issue, the saga of Bello El-Rufai? Clarence?
His mic is off again.
Yeah, he's muted. Uh,
Okay.
okay, he speaks.
Now,
Yeah, we can hear you. Please speak.
Okay.
Okay. You can. Okay, so where did I am not start from, Abeg?
Mm-hmm.
Where did I am not start from?
I think I am not was. I think I am not was a thing that I saw today. I saw it today, and I think there's this guy who doesn't hide his bigotry, and there's a guy called Waspapping. There's some Twitter handle called Waspapping.
Okay.
You've probably come across it when he comments on, especially when your northern woman posts a picture that shows too much skin, and then Waspapping comes and reads the riot act and tells her about how it is against the, I don't know, against the tenets of the religion.
Code of
So
conduct of Arewa people.
what, what, however he tends to put it. So he has been basically in the background of this whole matter, basically saying that this is an Igbo attack on the north, that Bello El-Rufai was just like an excuse for Igbo people to keep attacking the north. So he and many people with him now started the whole I am North hashtag thing. So so the I am not hashtag is basically uh, it's supposed to be, if I mean there's no problem in celebrating what you have in your culture if it stops there, but it was just basically a way of saying how supreme it was, a northern supremacy thing hashtag. So like there were some of the more egregious ones I saw were pictures of I don't know, some naked tribal women, and they were like, "Oh, we met Igbo people. This is how we met them, naked." So they had always been bush before, and we civilized them, or something like that. And then there were a lot of born to rule tweets and those kind of things. So that's basically what the I am not hashtag is basically.
Well,
But again, it
I
was
am.
basically interference.
It's a joke. It's actually a joke. So everything that's been happening has been people just wanting to distract. So on the day Bello said it, there was the whole Abuki discussion between Dr. Joe, Imba, and Co. These are a bunch of people that can't say this guy is talking. They can't say that. So they start another conversation about Aboki to make it sound as if it's what about you? Like, what
Hmm.
about these people? That was very coordinated, but you could see the attempt to take the conversation away. Fine. Then they saw that people didn't want to let it go. Threaten, threaten this person, threaten the other person, muzzle who you can muzzle. Then when the Brittle Paper discussion happened, now there's a lot of discussion whether okay, yeah, the guy put it there, put it out, put the news out. They might say it was not exactly literary content. Might be one excuse they have. But then
Hmm.
at the same time, people are giving examples of other. So when there's a novelist that I don't know, maybe a remark or something, and they had carried something like that before. All right. So it's not a case of
Also,
if a
also,
novelist made a wrong,
also actually mentioned something like that earlier. That
yeah,
the
that
British
they've
paper.
carried that kind of news before. All right. So if you say okay, the way he said it was wrong, the guy had a point. You could as well have edited it, came to me and talked to me and whatever. So there was pressure from someone. Someone picked a phone and called someone and said, "This is what your paper is saying."
Take it
Right?
down.
Take. But they say take it down. Like you know how these threats are. You might not even threat the person. Is this what you're saying about us? And the other guy goes down, doesn't talk to the person, takes it down. Now the guy, now something very as a working person, saving your emails, saving your emails out of work. I mean, it's a bit something that everybody frowns on. But you could also say that the guy was prepared. As soon as that's how it happened, the guy was prepared, like, okay, this is going to go to hell. Let me prepare what I need to prepare as soon as it's going to hell. That means there have been issues, small issues like this, but something on the road to this. Um, yes, so El-Rufai has done more or less what the, if you read stuff like The Prince, if you read all those things that tell you how to be a leader and how to be smart, they tell you, oh, capture these guys, capture the guys in the arts, capture the guys in the press, capture this, do that. You know, all those how to be a dictator. There was like a what do you call it? Key points.
Mm.
It was key points for how to be a dictator. He basically maybe has it in his back pocket, and he's been taking those things off. Nigeria is full of very ambitious people. He's been taking those things off. As soon as Jonathan and Co let him be, so my I have people that when I still felt he was one of the good guys, I had guys that always told me this guy is clever. Beware of him. I'm like, oh, people have bias against clever people, but there's clever and there's the fact that there's clever and there's the fact that somebody's devious, and then so it's not becoming to a
So,
part. So even the people that are seeing,
also we've added to we started with brilliant to cunning. Now we've added devious. We're
We are
making
getting
progress.
there.
But then,
We are getting. We are getting there.
so if you're well, the thing with things like devious is if you're an enemy, you see him as devious. If you are opposed to him, you see him as devious. If you are supportive of whatever ends he wants to get, let him do what he needs to do to get what he wants to get. You call him clever. So now here's the issue: is this somebody we should support? It comes with him. So I have a lot of friends who still support him. There's still a bit of he's still a good guy, and that's the thing people do with Buhari too. He's a good guy, so all the bad things he's done, even though they're the exact bad things I said yesterday that somebody did that made that person a bad person, because Buhari is from the beginning of the discussion a good guy. Those bad things have an explanation. So, oh, Jonathan was wrong to go into Baga and kill a bunch of people. Some same thing happens to the Shiites, and you then have an explanation for why the Shiites deserve it. And so now is El-Rufai someone to support? I won't lie to you that maybe till like 2 3 years ago, I felt he was still somebody to look at. But he has a multicultural state, and he's handling it in such a way that as to suppress the. He's giving us rules and excuses for it. Okay, yes, I don't want this one, I don't want this one, but it ends up still being that it's normally the minorities in those areas that you get heavier handed with.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have not fixed security. So all those heavy handedness with the minorities has not led to fixed security. All the claims of competence is that you've been heavy handed with minorities, you don't want to do wrong things, you are turning a blind eye to this because you are effective. But effectiveness has not even yielded results in terms of security
How
in
effective is
5 years.
he really?
So I do have a question. I have a question, and it goes to everyone. Um, so El-Rufai seems to act or acts like, and some people think I'm trying to be fair on the gentleman. Now, El-Rufai seems to act, or he's believed to act like an ethnic bigot, like a bigoted, ethnically motivated leader who has shown bias for his own people and bias against the other. How is it that a person with his behavior is able to still have friends uh, across? So he's friends with Obi Ezekwesili, he's friends with Joe Abba, he's friends with he's friends with a lot of people from where you say he victimizes. How is that possible?
All right.
So,
Um,
okay, yeah, okay. Oh no, so
Clarence,
you want
let
to say
me
something?
let me
Yeah.
yeah, let me jump in here. And let me try and play devil's advocate. So, atrocity for atrocity, for want of a better word, so I don't get sued. Um, is El-Rufai really the worst politician we have? Is there anything he's doing that other politicians are not doing? Is he the most bigoted? Is he the most vicious? Um, when we talk about or when we criticize Nigerian writers for collecting money from El-Rufai, is there really any Nigerian politician or any rich man that can be your benefactor that somehow you will not trace his wealth to some level of corruption or brigandy or bloodletting in all across Nigeria? So not just in the north, all across Nigeria. So is there a bit of hypocrisy? I mean, we don't like El-Rufai, and it's popular now to sort of criticize him, but is there a level of hypocrisy in pointing fingers at Brittle Paper for associating with friends of El-Rufai, or for Nigerian writers for associating with Kaba Fest? Is there any platform that isn't tainted in some way in Nigeria? And if there isn't, then what really is our, our problem?
And again, the way I think about it is that writers are artists and writers are professionals. As much as you can say that these writers need to be principled, they are professionals and they need to eat, and the art needs patrons. So, can we really blame them for looking out for uh, looking out for their patrons? I mean,
I think the issue for most people is because nobody really has a problem if a politician becomes a patron of the arts or some literary society or sponsors some book fair or attends. Nobody really has a problem. Now, where the problem now comes is because one thing a lot of people in literary circles do is there's always a tendency for them to make statements and to posture as having certain principles. I mean, take the issue of rape, for instance. I mean, whenever there's a rape discussion, they are usually in the forefront saying that there are certain things, for example, when a comedian makes a joke, or look at it was not a few days before that MI made that innuendo statement about the 19-year-old model. And, there was people, some of these people were basically like, okay, what MI said is problematic. So these are the people that tend to always say things are problematic, that we shouldn't joke with rape, that are always going after comedians for putting rape in their jokes or in their skits and all of that. And then all of a sudden, this now happens. Now, this should be low-hanging fruit for you. I mean, Bello's statement
No,
is
but
low-hanging fruit.
no, you cannot. No. Let me confess. So, for instance, again, we are trying to deny human nature. So, for instance, we all saw what Sheyi Makinde did with the rally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way I reacted to that, I think I put out maybe one half-hearted SMH, shaking my finger at him. That was a bit naughty of you, right? If it was El-Rufai that did a rally in Kaduna, Abba, do you understand what I mean? So are we asking a little bit too much when we say, burn down the houses of your patrons and friends because you burned out the houses of your enemies? It's not human nature. And if I did have any commentary to that, it would be that there shouldn't be a monopoly of patronage, and that would be pointing fingers at the opposition, at dissenting voices, or if Erifai is doing a Kaba Fest, why can't Wike do a Wada Fest, for instance? Do you know what I mean? No, but do you get my point? So that we are always guaranteed that whenever something happens, there will be an available platform that will speak out and criticize vocally.
Yeah. And that, I think that's the issue, because I remember I was talking with Feather's project, and he was saying that, look, that not many people are willing to patronize the arts. So there are few people, and it's a struggle. Everybody's struggling to be in front. Whether it is foreign patronage or from the politician. And one thing that is very, very clear is that the literary circle in Nigeria, there's a lot of bad blood, there are a lot of camps, and it comes out in this kind of situations. So yeah, maybe there should be more sources of patronage. So
okay, so
let me just act like see, before even patronage, yeah. When last did Nigerian author write a book that even made them enough money for them not to need this entire circuit to exist? I can't remember our arts.
Token Makinwa wrote a book and it was a bestseller. Just letting you know.
And but that was just like 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago, and she wasn't baptized at Aki before writing it, so she doesn't count. I'm talking about someone who has been baptized.
It was also ghost written too.
Who has been
Who
baptized by Aki. No, I'm making the point is that none of these guys.
Who's Ake?
None of these guys. Ake is the font at which all are baptized. If you are not if you're not baptized at that front, you're not a Nigerian bookhead kind of person. Okay, so I'm biased. I'm a very, I won't say blue collar, but I'm not very fond of modern Nigerian literature. But as I'm saying, so first and foremost, they're not productive enough to. We've not seen any of them be productive enough for the last 5 years to even make a fun stream of this thing they are doing. All right. Now, to be fair to them, some of it is systemic. We have lack of structure, piracy, everything. That's not saying them eat. All right.
Mm.
So donors and then you now come to the point where Nigeria does not have too much money outside government. Nigeria does not have too much money outside government. So the books themselves are not making money outside patronage, and then there's not too much patronage outside government. Now, my problem is not. I don't expect you to like Nedu for example. I don't expect Nedu to tell her no. Sorry. Yes, on one hand, I don't expect Nedu to tell her Rufai to insult him to his face,
On the chill,
right? But
on
if
the
a
TL.
black,
Yeah.
yes, no, but then if a black American and a white American, so a white American friend of a black American, right, said something like "you people" or maybe they were arguing against other people, and then the white American said "you people" or "your people." You've seen black Americans basically stop the guy and say, "Guy, explain this to
No.
your people."
What do you
And
mean
they
by
do it in public. They'll first like basically stop like, "Guy, how far? Explain this in." And I say, "Oh no, I didn't mean it in that way." And then they can continue the discussion, or discussion ends there. Now, two things happened with Nedu, which
Ross,
I tried to clarify from him. One, the guy felt comfortable enough with you to say this thing, right? There's how somebody is. You will not be comfortable enough with the person to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's imagine that Bello actually meant your things in he said he meant his followers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but there was the things,
Yeah.
and there was the yo, and there was the way it could be misread for something else, and then there was you saying, "Oh, ignore." We
Exactly.
just meant that in all that
You understood
he
what he
felt
was
okay. He, he felt okay with saying this to you, and you felt okay with letting it
hearing.
go. Yes, so he's explained that. To be fair, he thought he meant your followers. It's
Mm,
really
okay.
hard.
that's
It's hard, all right.
I
So,
had.
but let's imagine he thought it the first time he saw it, all right. Then Bello goes on its rad, and he's basically talking about Igbos, all right. So now people are not saying that both the your things and the Igbos are a combination, are the same thing. What do you have to say? Uh, Nedu has to accept. So for someone like it's not just that don't talk against your benefactor or your friend. Here is it. Nedu is very, very vocal.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is messing up where Nedu is very, very, very vocal. He's very,
Even and
very idealistic sound.
even with
He's
people that
very
are
idealistic. Even with his
like
friends.
his friends
Even
who are his friends.
Nedu will be talking to his friends in like live, as if it were a Ronald's party. Live, and he'll be basically very, very sounding very as if it's a preacher who's condemning you for wrong, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
okay, right? But then this guy does this that is wrong on a normal level. Is now wrong against your identity or whatever.
And
And
then you cannot even bring yourself to say something negative about it. You can't be. They had to literally force
those things
him.
are those things are friendship ending. I won't lie to you, those things are friendship ending.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Those things
friendship ending,
are
but it's not job ending, it seems. Okay,
so
so
that's the thing now. He's trying to absolve himself that he doesn't take any patronage from the guy, right?
so
Fine,
what
but
do
I
you,
don't understand.
okay, so at this point we have to move on. Final word, how do you think this matter will end?
I think it has ended.
I think it has ended. It
Um,
already ended.
Unfortunately, and I was having I was pondering this very question earlier today, and I was thinking about prosecution, and I think I asked a question. I said, "Does an apology absolve you of criminal liability?" Um, because Hadiza El-Rufai apologized, and we forgave her. Bello has apparently apologized, and we will move on. And I was saying I don't expect the Nigerian police to act on what has been pointed out several times as a crime. Um, and I was wondering how we get around it. Is it? And I was looking at crimes that have sort of like separate, like the Crown Prosecution Service, that's separate from the police. We have our attorney general's office here, but in America, I think it's an elective. State attorney generals are elective offices. You actually have to contest and say, when I come in, I'm going to go after rich people. There will be no sacred cows. And I think the idea behind it is so that when cases like this come up, because you are not beholden to the person who appointed you, and you are going to be up for election in the next 4 years or 3 years, however long the election cycle is, you owe the electorate a duty to prosecute crimes when they happen, regardless of who
Did it?
commits them. Um, so, because we don't have that system, because El-Rufai appoints his state attorney general, because Buhari appoints his federal attorney general, I don't see. I think an apology is going to be enough. The police will say, "Nah, two fighting," and
Mm-hmm.
that's the end of the
He
matter.
has apologized. What's the point?
Okay.
People should let
And
it go.
then next question. Do you think El Rufai will ever achieve his goal of leading this country?
If he
So
runs,
I think
Yeah, Clarence.
yeah, I think it's entirely possible because it just depends on what this coalition don't. It just depends on him being patient and not being stupid the way he tends to be. So what I mean is, if you can keep this coalition together, right, plus some rigging, you should be able to keep power in this country. So 2023 is almost here. It's going to be very hard for the PDP to go unless if these guys keep their coalition together. Tinubu side plus North. Now, all Erufai needs to know is that he cannot or he should not try for the North ticket 2023. Just allow yourself to be VP or something, and then
Uh,
get it. All right, so he can get it in the long run. If he tries too early, too fast, it might be too much. But here's the problem: all the people. So the importance of this Bello El-Rufai incident is not what happens now. Nothing will happen to Bello. Nothing will happen to Hadiza. But 2022, this should count. This was us seeing how the family thinks about a certain part of the country. Remember the guy that attacked Bello was not Igbo. Remember the person that attacked Bello was not Igbo. So you have to understand this is how this thought runs in this family, and will this count against them when they come to Nsuka and where Siago? This count against them. I
okay.
don't know. That's the only thing that can come out of this.
Before we move forward, I just need to ask how, on a scale of one being COVID-19 and 10 being Ebola, on what scale is being president to El Rufai being your VP? On a scale of 1 to 10, where one is SARS and COVID-19 and 10 is Ebola, where do you rate it?
an El-Rufai presidency.
No, no, no. being president and El-Rufai being your vice, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is COVID-19 and 10 is Ebola, where do you rate that?
I'd rate it 12. 12. A snake in your school bag. Carrying a
I
snake in
don't.
your school bag all day. That's
I,
I
I
rate it
think
12.
I actually think using COVID-19 and Ebola, because Ebola, at least Ebola kills you quickly. COVID-19, yeah, it's contagious, but it hardly kills. I would put it with, I'll call it eight, because it will last long and it will keep being dangerous. It'll be something that will be hovering around you. So if I had El Rufai as my vice president, I don't think I'll be comfortable for a long time, because it's not going to kill
Also,
me early.
also, you don't need to answer this question if you don't want to.
Yes, and I'm going to. I think this might surprise you guys. Between you and me, I hope nobody listens to this podcast. Um,
There are many people in the comments. There's a conversation going on in the comments.
I think I'll tell you the truth. If you look at a Rwanda or you look at a Libya, where you have uh, basic human rights suspended, and there's just a focus on World Bank development metrics, so measures, so education outcomes, health outcomes, that sort of thing. Um, I think Nigeria under an Rufai presidency will do a lot better than it's doing currently under a Buhari presidency.
For sure.
But we wouldn't be able to hold this kind of conversation under an Rufai presidency. Um, it would be, if we say Buhari is oppressive, and is looking to muzzle the media, it would be, in my estimation, 10 times worse under Rufai. And so you get to that argument about which is more important in a democracy. Is it just your freedoms, or is it things like being able to earn a living wage and raising things
Please,
like
please,
infant
please,
and child
please, please.
mortality?
Clarence,
I
calm
want to
down.
answer that question.
So,
I want to answer that question because that question
so,
Clarence,
is a question
so,
I'm scared of.
Clarence, calm down. Go on.
Go ahead, Clarence.
so that's the thing.
Lagos
The
is
tricky
Lagos.
one is
Is Lagos.
for
Lagos touches you in a particular way.
So for me personally, the most important thing in a democracy are human rights, and I think most importantly the right to free speech. Um, and because of that, an L5 presidency is not something I'm willing to countenance. Um, but for some people, they will see an improvement in their life. Of course, they'll sacrifice certain rights, but they will see an improvement in their life.
Okay. I think Clarence.
Okay, let's two things. So the sacrifice of human rights for progress. I think everybody thinks of it and looks at China nowadays. All right. The problem with leaders like El Rufai and a country like Nigeria, Nigeria is not just heterogeneous. It's heterogeneous in such a way that no one group really has the power to totally discard about four or five other one main group and some others smaller groups. And here's the problem. Here's the problem that will happen with an L5 presidency. So China is the model everybody looks at. They could set aside human rights and give economic growth and prosperity. The problem is Nigeria is not China. Nigeria does not have the deeply strong civil service culture or that China somehow maintained. All right. Nigeria does not have that elite class of people who believe that developing the country is also their own self-interest. Even no matter how wicked they want to be, it's their own self. Now, if you get a guy like El Rufai, his competence at handling things like security is not assured. If he goes being as inflammatory as Buhari, he does not have the pull to keep the country together the way Buhari does. So if you inflame the tensions by trying to suppress free speech, trying to clamp down on, I mean, look at their social media law. The social media law would have caught anybody else, but not have caught Bello El-Rufai, right? So by the time you start doing that on a large scale and you don't have Buhari's, to me, Buhari has a lot of depth in terms of being a leader of in Nigeria versus an Rufai. By the time you do those two, three things, and significant part of the country decide that they will give you 2 years, you spend 2 years pacifying them. You find that you're not China. China can go and shut down Tibet and do anyhow to Tibet. But if you try to do this with the southeast, try to do it with the southwest, very easily you could spend your whole tenure doing it in a civil war. All right. So all those things that we think he can, first of all, you've not proven his competence as much. Second, those other things that we should sacrifice for a competent Rufai may not allow the competence to show. If you fight 2 3 years of civil war, there's no amount of roads you build
Mhm.
that will fix it, that would overlay that.
Let me let me play devil's advocate again. And people always use China, and they assume China is this homogeneous entity. It's not. I know. Last time I checked, China had um, about
90%.
50, 60, about 50 or 60 ethnic minority groups.
But
And so it's why in
what
China,
percentage is Han?
no, but it's why in China, for
China is
example,
92% Han.
it's
So
why
that's the
in
thing. So
China you hear
if
about, it's why in China you hear about Muslim concentration camps, for instance. Nigeria had the same amount of
Oh my
ethnic
God,
groups he
this
had
stream is going to
during
disappear.
Abacha's, and there were no ethnic issues under the military rule. Oh. You were either a Nigerian or you're a military man, and that's the danger of a dictator. We saw it again in Libya. Once a strong man, we saw it in Iran. Once a strong man is toppled, it's then you now start having these ethnic interscene conflicts. And that is and that's my worry under an Rufai presidency. We will not be having conversations about our 300 and however many languages and
And
about our
ethnic groups.
minorities. It will be power and the rest of us. And he has shown time and time again that he knows how to wield power without a conscience. Um, so I don't want Nigeria will not break up under a strong armed leader. It will not. We are more likely to even break up under Buhari than under Rufai.
so, let me differ a bit. So, first of all, the point of China. China is like 90 something percent one ethnic group. So, much as there are other ethnic groups, they all make up a very small percent. And what China does is, by the time everybody is attacking one or two ethnic groups, it's too late. Do you understand? So, for Nigeria, yes, Nigeria didn't break up after the Civil War because more or less the ruling junta just cleared off everybody in the military that could have been a problem at that point. So between clearing off everyone in the military who could have actually done these insurrections and having just fought a civil war 10, 20 years ago, nobody had the appetite to split. That generation
Clarence,
has
Clarence, please
that generation,
stop.
that generation has gone.
Please stop telling El Rufai what to do.
Okay, okay. So that
Stop
generation has
giving him
gone. That's my fear.
ideas.
My fear is that generation has gone. So the young guys today that are doing Biafra movement, right? They don't have that same
That's war
fear
weariness.
or I don't want to go to war because even though I have a point, it's going to end badly, right? Even if I win, it's going to end badly. They don't have those same war awareness, and the ones that are coming after them don't have that same thing. You have guys in the creeks who don't even understand what life is. So there's a potential that as an El Rufai presidency is rising up, the same way Nnamdi Kanu rose up with vice presidency. Some random guy in some random place rises up. He mishandles it because all he's going to do is what you've said he's going to do. He's going to try to clamp down free speech, everything. The more he clamps down, problem. And now we don't still have that old problem with the military again. It's fixed itself a bit. So you can have those kind of issues and those kind of weaknesses. So I know yes, Nigeria still needs a bit of a strong central authority. But someone like him right now, at that split of where the 1966 set are all dying off and a new set is being born.
All right. So I'm
So
going to
one
run through the.
person at that point is hurtful.
All right.
I think
Thanks,
we're
Clarence.
approaching
I
to we're
actually want.
approaching to
I want.
ours.
We're down. We're almost in 2 hours. I'm going to run through the comments right now. Um, so, first comment: Wike can do and undo at any time. True. Yes. Also, Ayodeji Lukade says, "I wish we could examine this discussion beyond Bello El-Rufai."
Okay,
Yes,
I wish
feedback
we had.
taken. Yeah, and then he goes and says, "This whole drama is beyond the person of Bello. Those who are born and brought up in the North see in
See,
Bello the sociology of the entitled Northern elite child." Also, they are your people. Is that true? Then Giuseppe Nardin says the MI Innuendo statement was distasteful in the view of the same category that stood with Brittle Paper. So you were talking about the MI Innuendo statement, which I know nothing about. On the issue of patronage, Piers Morgan considers Donald Trump his friend, but calls him out publicly when he goes out of line. I understand the human angle, though. That's Enahoro Ade Kagba. Then Giuseppe Nardin says, even if there's not enough patronage, this does not mean that you should throw away values to the wind. These are values and positions that should be defended. Then Timothy says, Bello's case is peculiar. If it wasn't an El-Rufai civil organization, would have been shouting at the top of their voices by now. And then on El-Rufai, Timothy says he very well might, that's very well might become president. And then he says El-Rufai does have the ability to keep Nigeria together. Remember, instilling the right amount of fear is all you need to keep Nigerians in line. And then Solomon says, why is Osef always afraid to fully express himself?
Just for the comment.
Let me respond to Solomon. I'm a satirist, right? And every time I say, because I will always say something. I will say, I'm afraid to say it, but because I don't want to be arrested, but I think you're an idiot. I'll always say what I want to say. And the reason I always say I'm afraid to speak freely when I'm talking specifically about El-Rufai is because he has consistently gone after people who has criticized him. I mean, personally, I'm not afraid of being gone after. I can match him in court. Anything I say is well considered, and I can defend my statements. But there are many Nigerians who don't have that liberty. And I always want people to remember that with this particular person, your freedoms will be limited. So that's why I always say I'm afraid to call him a bigot, or whatever it is I want to call him. So that's what
Okay. I think the way we end the stream is everyone basically talks about what they are reading. So let's start with the last person to come into the stream, which is Clarence. So Clarence, what are you reading right now?
What I'm reading.
Yeah.
Currently, it's changed, but
Yeah,
I'll find a way to make everything work.
that's the name of the book.
Hello?
Oh, I did not get that.
The all the project management books, really, and the exam preps and the body of knowledge.
Okay, so nothing in particular that you might
Yeah,
recommend.
nothing. Yeah, let me just open my library. Let me see what I was reading before that. Before that, that was. I had to stop midway reading the 12 Books for Life book and just
Oh,
focus
okay,
on this. Yeah, that was
okay,
what I was reading last.
okay. The Jordan Peterson book.
Yes.
Okay. Jose? Okay, Jose's mic is still up.
Who's
Um,
talking?
okay, Jose. So what are you reading?
Okay, so I'll go next if no one else is talking.
Yeah.
Um I'm reading Zealot, the life and times of Jesus of Nazareth. It was written by Riza Aslan, and it's a very interesting book. It basically tries to separate the myth of Jesus, that's what they call it, the gospel of Jesus, from the historical man, the real man who was born and lived in a certain period.
Okay.
And it's because, of course, there were not too many records, so most of it is anecdotal. But just that this book exists, that I'm able to, buy and read a book that argues that Jesus was not really the Son of God and was just one of many prophets of the time who wanted to sort of create a kingdom away from Roman rule. It's it's sort of really, really interesting. And it's one of the things I like about Christianity, really, that you are able to, regardless of your take, regardless of your opinion, you are able to articulate and express those opinions. And me, like a Christian, I don't agree with the book, because it works too hard to make the argument that Jesus was just a man.
Mm.
But it's an interesting book, and I'm happy that I'm part of a religion that allows me read this sort of book and appreciate it
Without
um,
consequence.
for what it is. Yeah. So that's what I'm reading. Zealot by Riza Aslan.
Okay. Um, I am reading. Well, it was what I was reading in the last in the during the when we did the last stream. So I haven't finished it yet because I've been doing other things. But I have been reading Viktor Frankl. It's a very short book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a short book, so it's funny that I haven't finished it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks after. But it's basically Viktor Frankl is a psychologist, and he spent a good chunk of time in, I think, Auschwitz, but he was moved to concentration camp life, and how people were still able to find some sort of meaning even while in the concentration camp. And he says a lot of very, very important things, of very, very interesting things. So that's what I'm reading. Tosin is ready for us now. his mic is still muted. I think the best thing is will be to end the stream. We've gone past
The
2 hours.
struggle is real. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
so yes, I can.
What am
So
I
tell us
reading?
what you're reading. Yes, tell us what you're reading.
To be fair, I actually haven't been reading. I plan to read something called The Fourth Turning. I don't know what the book is about.
Fourth turning.
But I'm in between. I'm in between reading books. So I plan to read maybe next week. Start reading The Fourth Turning.
An American Prophecy.
Yeah, that book.
Okay. Let me share the screen.
I don't know much about the book. I know that.
Yeah, I heard about it. So.
Yeah, I know that Steve Bannon really thinks highly of the author, and yeah, so I want to read it.
I'd forgotten that you were alt-right.
I'm so many things these days. Alt-right, right wing, misogynist, everything. Yeah. So yeah, he does Daddy Yatta. Whatever happened to Daddy Yatta anyway? Has he been found? Sorry, I'm asking this question. It seems like I'm completely stupid, but has Daddy Yatta been found?
No.
Legit. Wow.
Unfortunately, no one has heard. No one knows.
Well,
Man disappeared off the face of the earth, so no one knows.
Oh dear. Well, nothing ever stays hidden forever.
Okay, so I think we should end at this point.
Yeah, it's such a grim note. I shouldn't have asked that question. Anyways, I'm sure this stream is so long that
2 hours.
You should.
2 hours and
Yep,
None
2
of,
hours is quite.
none of the El-Rufai people will get all the way to the end of this stream. So, fingers crossed.
yeah.
So, Ose, what's
The person spying for them will tell them 152 is where they said the bad thing. 152, 1 minute, 1 hour 52 minutes where they said the bad thing. So,
anyway, so what's next week going to be like for you guys? Still working at home for me. Clarence, what's it going to be? What's next week going to be like?
yeah, working at home.
Same thing. Home office. Same thing. The same lockdown routine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm trying to regain my youth.
In COVID-19.
Really exercise.
Your youth.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully, when you come back, you'll be in shape and you'll be able to maintain your lifestyle of exercise. It is something that I have noticed that a lot of people, when in the evenings when I walk around with Madame, I see a lot of families actually just walking around. So this time might actually be good for that. So, Ikena, do you want to close this?
Well, thank you, Ose. Thank you, Clarence, for joining us. Well, maybe both of you can become fixtures because there are many interesting topics that I noticed that we could talk about. I mean, fully in one show. And well, thank you, Tosin, again. And hopefully we will do this very soon again.
Well, thank you to the audience. This is where we end. If you have stayed this long, if you stayed 2 hours on this stream, well, I know we're on lockdown, but you really need to reevaluate yourself.
Please don't mind me. We are in support of you.
We are in support of you. You're
My
doing well. You have done
Also,
well. You have done well. It's
Yeah,
a good
dude.
way. It's a good way to
failed
spend
Reef
your
to
lockdown.
send failed Reef to send some palliatives your way from
Yes, yes,
Usuka
yes. You
at some
deserve. You
point.
deserve a bottle of
my
hero.
dad is back from work. Go and give
You
them her
deserve.
food, guys.
If you spend this whole full stream with us, you deserve a bottle of hero, cold one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it's also it's your madam
Madam just
home,
came in from work.
and
Yeah,
I
so
think
let
at
me
that.
go and give her dinner.
Ah,
Let me go and give her dinner, guys.
This
oh
is
boy,
what a
you are such. Wow, what a weak man. What a week man.
All right, so till next week or till next time.
Until next time.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. Thanks, audience.
yeah.